So, fun fact, when I made my Lost Media Iceberg video, I actually thought I was late to the trend. Yeah, I had no idea this would be a thing. I don't plan on covering icebergs often, but this one on Lost Game Shows is interesting. It's an aspect of Lost Media that really isn't talked about, at least not on YouTube. Most people know about Lost movies or Lost TV shows, but game shows that rarely get any form of home media release go missing quite often. So that's the topic of today's video. To be completely honest, some of these entries are so unbelievably obscure that I can't even find solid information on them. Rest assured that like 90% of the iceberg is still in this video, and some of them do get really interesting. But seriously, they're just family-friendly trivia shows meant to waste time on. How dark could this iceberg possibly be? Wheel of Fortune NBC episodes. Kicking off this layer is Wheel of Fortune, which has several partially lost episodes and various cut material that has yet to resurface. From 1975 to 1981, recordings of the episodes were often taped over so the tape could be reused for more recent episodes. This was an extremely common practice at the time, as television content was seen as more disposable as opposed to how we preserve it nowadays. As a result, much of the early years of the show remain lost to this day, with only home recordings and television archives filling in the gaps here and there. While the wheel is certainly the most recognizable aspect of the show, filling in the missing puzzles is nearly as iconic. Throughout the years, some of these puzzles were omitted in post-production, usually as a result of real-world events or simple production errors. For the episode from November 2nd, 1992, the round 2 puzzle was initially meant to spell out Vanna's pregnant, which would have announced the hostess' pregnancy. Sadly, shortly after the taping of this episode, she had a miscarriage. As a result, it was replaced with a 3-minute look at the filming of the episode, with it cutting back to the host telling the winner how much they won. Additionally, there were 2 puzzles related to Hurricane Katrina that were cut, one of which remains completely unknown. In its original run, the puzzles were replaced with the host encouraging viewers to donate to relief funds. Hurricane Katrina also affected filming of episodes as well, with 3 weeks of episodes planned to be filmed in New Orleans, from August 26th to August 28th. However, the hurricane struck before production was finished, and the crew had to be evacuated, leaving the episodes unfinished. Luckily, the contestants would get their chance to play in May of 2006. Dream House. Dream House was a game show where contestants would compete to win, you guessed it, a new house. While a good deal of the original series is able to be found easily online, some of the tapes were erased or taped over, which, as we mentioned before, was a common practice at the time. Though there are rumors that controversy surrounding the show played a part. The controversy being that TV Guide reported that none of the houses that were given away on the show were actually completed, and that many couples had to borrow much more than the $7,000 prize money to actually be able to afford the land that their dream house was built on. While the original series may be partially lost due to controversy, the reboot was far less lucky and has had all of its tapes destroyed. Unlike the original series, this was not intentional destruction. The master tapes of the entire series were in possession of the series creator, Don Reed, but they were destroyed by a flood in 2013. Luckily, several episodes have surfaced online, but aside from those, it would seem that the rest of the series is doomed to remain lost for the rest of time. Jeopardy pilot. Another game show that needs no introduction is Jeopardy, the classic series all about trivia. While the series officially began on March 30th, 1964, a test pilot was actually recorded earlier that month on March 5th for a pitch to NBC. It was hosted by Art Fleming, announced by Don Pardo, and the contestants were Grace, Jerry, and Dolores, last names unknown, and with the winner being unknown as well. The pilot's whereabouts were unknown until the 4,000th episode aired on May 15th, 2002. Alex Trebek gave a retrospective on the original NBC series, and showed a 24-second snippet of the unaired pilots.
Let's play Jeopardy! There are your 6 categories for this half. Television, U.S. geography, women, bits and pieces, politics, the funnies. Any one of you may ring when you recognize the answer, and this will place you all in jeopardy.
In 2005, Sony released a DVD featuring 3 more clips of the pilot. Then, during NBC's 90th anniversary in February 2017, another brief clip was shown during their segment on game shows. The rest of the pilot has yet to resurface in any form, but it's clear that NBC has access to it, or at least parts of it. Perhaps someday we'll see more of it, but until then, we'll have to be content with these brief clips. Whoosh, soundtrack. And yeah, that's how it's pronounced, apparently.
Welcome to our show. You pronounce it and you play it with 2 bright people, and here they are.
So, was an incredibly short-lived game show that aired from 1979 to 1980 that featured Tom Kennedy as its host and had an animated intro created by Hanna-Barbera. The main objective of the show was for 2 contestants to compete in order to correct bloopers, basically just popular phrases or lyrics that have had a word or 2 replaced. The show wasn't very popular, leading to its cancellation, but would gain a cult following in later years. Another reason why the show gained popularity was for its unique soundtrack, which was composed by Alan Thicke, who also did the themes for many other game shows, including Wheel of Fortune. No official release of the show's entire soundtrack was ever released after its cancellation, with only short clips, recreations, and a closing theme to the show surfacing. Not helping matters is that Alan Thicke doesn't even remember composing for the show, nor does he have the soundtrack in his possession. A rumor circulated that Thicke had destroyed the master reels of the soundtrack after an ugly divorce, but those rumors have never been confirmed. In 2012, the Museum of Television Production Music announced that they had found the soundtrack, restored it, and made it their renewal gift for subscribers until mid-2013. The only way the soundtrack in its entirety would be able to make it online is if any subscribers to the Museum of Television Production Music from 2013 were to upload it, but it seems unlikely. Demi Lovato's Beat Shazam appearance. Beat Shazam is a game show that is still currently airing, that was created by Jeff Aploff and Wes Cobble, and is hosted by singer and actor Jamie Foxx. The concept of the show is very similar to another game show called Name That Tune, but the difference here being that contestants had to name a song faster than the app Shazam, whose entire purpose is to recognize songs as fast as possible. There is one episode of the series that had a segment mysteriously edited out, featuring singer and former Disney star Demi Lovato. Many episodes had celebrity guest stars, so this wasn't uncommon, but earlier that day, Lovato overdosed on opioids and was sent to a medical center, where she later recovered the same day. Given the gravity of the situation, the episode never aired. It would later air that September, with Lovato's appearance cut out. In late 2020, the Canadian cable channel Game TV announced that it would be airing Beat Shazam during their lineup, including a never-before-seen clip of Demi Lovato's appearance in their promo. Lo and behold, come September 29th, 2020, the entire episode featuring Demi Lovato aired on Game TV, with Lost Media Wiki user ComedyFan74 recording the episode with their phone. So, this was a short-lived piece of Lost Media, but an interesting one nonetheless. Sale of the Century. From 1969 to 1973, NBC aired a quiz show called Sale of the Century. It had contestants starting out with $25 and gaining $5 for every piece of trivia they got right, but losing $5 for every piece they got wrong. The host would try to persuade the contestants with the most money to essentially gamble in a sales-like format. After the series had ended, none of the episodes ever resurfaced, and even the number of episodes was left up in the air. The reason for this is the same reason why many shows disappear around the same time, taping over the episodes or disposing of them to make way for new shows. The only material we had to go off of for years were press photos, leaked photos, audio recordings, and photos used for merchandise, such as board games. Luckily, in August 2020, ComedyFan74 discovered a website that had 2 episodes of the show in audio format. Unfortunately, any actual footage of the series remains lost to this day, and the only full versions of any episodes we have are the 2 audio recordings that ComedyFan74 has uploaded. Jackpot, 1974 to 1975. Jackpot was a popular game show series that aired on NBC from 1974 to 1975. Then again from 1985 to 1988 on USA Network and Global Television Network. And then again from 1989 to 1990 for American syndication. The show had contestants answer riddles with a bit of a King of the Hill angle to it. While the 1985 and the 1989 series remain fully intact, having been seen on the Gameshow Network, the original NBC series remains almost completely lost, with only 2 episodes surviving, according to the host Jeff Edwards. This was once again due to wiping out old tapes to make way for new shows. Truly the enemy of lost media fans everywhere. Edwards says that one of the episodes had a contestant win a $38,750 super jackpot that aired on January 3rd, 1975. Additionally, the finale exists in audio form only. The Cube, USA 2010 pilot. The Cube is a popular British game show that debuted in 2009 on ITV. Its concept was very similar to the show Minute to Win It, where a single contestant would face a number of challenges, often equipped with common household items, and would attempt to finish them for an increasing cash prize. The show debuted to critical acclaim, and many different international versions would be developed, including a version set to air in the United States. But that version would never actually air. A pilot was filmed for CBS in early 2010, with Neil Patrick Harris as the host, but it was never picked up by the network, and therefore never aired. The only existing footage of the pilot is a part of the intro. Deal or No Deal pilots. Almost everybody knows what Deal or No Deal is, but apparently there were 4 pilots for the show. 4 pilot episodes were made for a rejected version of the show for ABC in 2004. Not much is known about them separately, more so as a singular entity. According to a review of the pilot, the original version of the show would have 26 contestants compete against each other to be chosen by the host to win the grand prize. The final contestant won a prize of $250,000, but due to the show not airing, it's unknown if the contestant actually received the money or not. ABC executives were not impressed with these initial pilots, and the audience themselves were also incredibly bored by what was happening, leading to the show not going forward and instead being retooled into the NBC version we know today. A DVD with one of the pilots is confirmed to exist, but it has never appeared online in any form. Randomly, on June 23, 2020, a 59-second clip of one of the pilots was uploaded to Dailymotion, and then on January 28, 2021, a man named Wink Martindale revealed on his Facebook that he discovered one of the pilots and will release it if his YouTube channel gets 18,000 subscribers. As of the making of this video, he has yet to reach his goal, but if he does, let's hope he's telling the truth. Snap Judgments, 1967 to 1969. Snap Judgments was a game show that aired on NBC from 1967 to 1969, and was hosted by Ed McMahon and Gene Rayburn. The show pitted 2 teams against each other in a word association game, with each team being made up by a normal contestant and a celebrity. At the start of the game, the contestant would complete their associations, and then the celebrity had 3 tries to guess the association based on the clue provided by the host. A lot was actually known about the show, including its entire vast set of rules being easily available online. Despite this, no episodes of the show exist in archived form. Only 2 clips remain online that are in audio form, and they are the intro and a small bonus rough clip from a 1967 episode. An episode from August 19th, 1968 has an audio tape, but hasn't been leaked yet. It's incredibly unlikely that any actual episodes will ever be leaked, as unfortunately, it is yet another victim of the tape wiping phenomenon that took place during the 60s and 70s. It's a shame, but it's just the unfortunate reality of television from that era. You're in the Picture, Episode 2. You're in the Picture was a game show that aired just a single episode on CBS on January 20th, 1961. Hosted by Jackie Gleason, it was instantly panned upon release, and was ranked as one of the worst TV shows ever produced. Yeah, not just game shows, TV shows in general. The premise of the show was that a life-size illustration of some pop culture or historical moment was brought on stage, and 4 celebrities would have to place their heads in them and try and guess what it is, based on yes or no questions. A second episode was produced, but due to the abysmal response to the first one, it never aired. Instead, Gleason appeared and gave a 30-minute apology for the lack of quality on the show. While the network was immensely angered by this, audiences loved it, and it boosted Gleason's appeal and popularity, even leading to a revival of his talk show, The Jackie Gleason Show, to fill in the time left by You're in the Picture. When Gleason appeared on The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson in 1985, Carson mentioned he had appeared on a taped episode of the game show. This is the only mention of the second episode. It's rumored that Gleason had a copy of the second episode, but that remains unfounded, and it's likely that it will never resurface. Double Dare Missing Episodes. If you grew up in the 80s or 90s, there's a chance you remember Double Dare. Hosted by Mark Summers, the show had kids go through crazy obstacle courses to win prizes and money. There are a total of 482 episodes made across all versions of the show. However, only about 450 are available online, leaving just under 30 episodes unaccounted for. One episode is missing from the first run of 65 episodes, titled Extraordinaires vs. Challengers. A whopping 17 episodes are missing of the second half of the 1987 season, Super Sloppy Double Dare. 7 episodes are also missing from the 1988 run, as well as a test pilot created for the series, but isn't counted. The last 2 unaccounted for episodes have a bit of a backstory. The first involving a contestant with brittle bone disease, a condition that made his bones much more fragile than the average kid on the show. He actually lied about his condition, and that's how he made it onto the show. During the show, the contestant broke his arms, causing the bone to go through the skin. It was so graphic that Mark Summers actually had to leave the set to puke, and the episode was not aired. Another episode featured a kid going down the sewer chute, and Summers actually thought the kid had died. The contestant's father, who was an attorney, forced the show to give his son the prize for that course, a large screen TV, or he would sue them. They gave it to him, and from that point onward, checked every child's application to make sure their parents weren't lawyers. Name That Tune, 1990 pilot. Name That Tune is a classic game show that actually began as a radio game show in 1952. It was created by Harry and Roberta Salter, with the premise being that an orchestra would begin to play a tune, and contestants would run across the stage to ring a bell once they figured out what the song is. The show ran through many different iterations, with a 50s run, 2 separate runs in the 70s, an 80s run, and a brand new run that began in January of 2021. A pilot for a revival was planned in 1990 and was actually shot. It featured Peter Allen as the host and had a brand new format that was later seen in a Philips CDI game based on the series. The pilot was never picked up, and therefore never released to the public. A few clips were used in a pitch film by Orion that eventually found its way online in 2014, but it wasn't until August 23, 2020 that the pilot was finally released to the public, when TV Game Show Vaults on Facebook uploaded a large amount of game show episodes, the unaired pilot included amongst them. Aside from the 1990 version, attempts were made to revive the show in 2007 and 2017, but neither went anywhere, nor were filmed at all. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Brad Bianucci Run. Perhaps one of the most recognizable game shows of the past few decades is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? While there are no known missing episodes of the series, this is an interesting case of some missing segments. There are a few cases of certain contestants receiving flawed questions, and thus never had those segments aired. However, one contestant's entire game was never aired, that contestant being Brad Bianucci. He was the final contestant to play during the 1999 run, and due to time constraints, never had his game air. It's said that he won $125,000. The episode he was meant to appear in aired on November 24th, 1999. Nickelodeon Splat. In the summer of 2004, a game show was aired on Nickelodeon titled Nickelodeon Splat. And unlike other game shows that aired on the network, this one just oozes Nickelodeon. Literally, as the name implies, the theming is all around slime this time. The show had contestants divided into the green, red, and yellow teams, depending on their date of birth. Contestants would have to complete humorous tasks in order to win prizes, along with a mystery prize at the end. At the very end, the winning team was slimed, as well as the audience that was sitting in that color seating area. The series was very short-lived, which likely contributed to its status as partially lost. The series wasn't archived, nor were there any reruns, so the only footage of the series that currently exists is through various clips and promos. Improv Olympic 1988 Pilots. In 1988, the Chicago Comedy School Improv Olympic, a school famous for teaching several great comedians like Mike Myers and Vince Vaughn, was offered a pilot for a Whose Line Is It Anyway style improv show. Shauna Halpern, a teacher at the school, accepted the offer and brought along some of her best students, including a young Chris Farley. Upon filming the pilot for the series, the producer became frustrated at the material that Farley and others were performing, claiming that it was, quote, too smart, and they needed to dumb it down. Comedians were fired and replaced by what Halpern called dick joke comedians. Farley wasn't happy with the direction the show was going, but decided to give them what they wanted, and made an absolute fool of himself on purpose, leading the producers to laugh their asses off. The pilot was eventually cancelled, and no footage of it was ever released. The only mention of it was in a biography about the late Chris Farley, titled The Chris Farley Show, where Halpern recalled the filming of it briefly. Legends of the Hidden Temple Quibi version. So, remember Quibi? Probably not, but here's a reminder. Quibi was an attempt at a new streaming service that focused entirely on bite-sized content, meant to be viewed in situations like taking the bus or watching on your work break. It launched on April 6, 2020, right when the coronavirus pandemic happened. This was the reason used to describe why Quibi failed, as it was meant to be watched when out and about in the world. But the real reason was that it was received horribly, since platforms like YouTube and TikTok offer the same content and are free. But anyways, why are we talking about Quibi? Well, it turns out that a Legends of the Hidden Temple reboot was planned for the service. The series originally aired on Nickelodeon and had contestants run through a mystical temple to complete obstacle courses and puzzles to receive prizes. A casting call for the reboot was announced in March of 2020, but after that it was radio silence until the service was shut down in December of that year. While whatever the Quibi version was will likely remain lost for all time, if it ever actually existed, it appears there's still hope for a reboot after all, as it was announced that a reboot would air on the CW. Quibi's entire library was sold to Roku after its cancellation, so it's unlikely this is the same reboot, and is rather an entirely new production. Figure It Out 1996 pilot. Here's yet another Nickelodeon game show for this layer, titled Figure It Out. The series originally aired from 1997 to 1999, and was hosted by Summer Sanders. A pilot was made sometime in the mid-1990s that was completely different from what the show ended up being. Instead of Summer Sanders, it was hosted by Kevin Steele, and the theming was based around multicolored puzzle pieces. No footage exists of the gameplay segments, so it's unknown if there were any changes to how the game played. The official pilot was filmed in 1997 with Sanders and the more 90s theme, and the reasoning to why the original concepts were ditched were never made clear. The only footage of this pilot that exists is in a 5-minute compilation video created to celebrate Nickelodeon's 10th anniversary. Hollywood Squares Sandy Barron pilot. Hollywood Squares was created by Meryl Heater and Bob Quigley, and first aired on October 17th, 1966 on NBC. A few months earlier in August though, a pilot was shot before the one that officially aired. This pilot featured Burt Parks as the host instead of the host in the full series, Peter Marshall. While this early pilot would eventually find its way online, according to Marshall, there existed a second pilot that featured the comedian Sandy Barron as the host, and that Marshall himself was in the audience for said pilot. As of 2020, there is no evidence or confirmation that this second pilot exists, though Sandy Barron would eventually go on to appear on the show as a panelist in the full series. Our Little Genius. Our Little Genius was a game show that never actually aired, hosted by Kevin Pollak and created by Mark Burnett. It was supposed to air on Fox in 2010 and would have featured child prodigies answering questions to win money for their families. The kids were given 10 questions and 2 assists, one where an adult would come in to help them out, and the second where a panel of experts would help the child answer the question. A week before the show was intended to air, Mark Burnett himself asked Fox to postpone it, due to issues revolving around its integrity. There were allegations that the show was rigged, because a member of the production team gave a contestant and their parents the exact answers to 4 questions. Because of this, the show was pulled, and American Idol took its time slot. The FCC launched an investigation to see if the allegations were true, but whatever the results were, it ended with the show ultimately being cancelled. The pilot never aired, and to this day, the only footage that exists of the show is a brief promo from 2010. Tuned In Pilot. Continuing our trend of lost Nickelodeon game shows is Tuned In, a game show pilot that was filmed at Nickelodeon Studios in 1998. There is barely any information regarding the series, aside from the fact that it featured a cartoon character, possibly as the host or as a contestant. The only footage of it that exists is about 5 seconds without the original audio, featured in a 5-minute compilation video for Nickelodeon's 10th anniversary back in 2000. No reason has been given as to why this series was never given the green light. But in 2001, the trademark for the series was abandoned by Nickelodeon, due to no statement of use. In February of 2021, Nickelodeon revived Tuned In, having it be an animation trivia show featuring questions related to SpongeBob SquarePants, The Loud House, and The Legend of Korra. Perhaps this was what the show was meant to be? We'll never know. All-Star Celebrity Bowling. Celebrity bowling sounds exactly like what it is. It was celebrities bowling. The sports series was hosted by Jed Allen and ran from 1971 to 1978. Each week, 4 celebrities split into teams of 2 were pitted against each other in a bowling competition to win prizes. The series was revived multiple times, once in 1987, then again in 2008, another in 2011, and then finally another one in 2014. Throughout the decades, reruns of the series were aired on various channels, and even Hulu. 144 episodes of the original series are presumed to exist, but it's currently difficult to ascertain where they are, and if there are any lost episodes at all. Only the first 3 seasons of the original series are readily available to watch, with them being available on both Tubi and Amazon Prime Video. High Rollers, 1975 to 76, syndicated episodes. High Rollers was a game show based off the dice game Shut the Box, that aired on NBC and in syndication from 1974 to 76, then from 1978 to 1980, and then again from 1987 to 88. The show was created by Meryl Heater and creator of Hollywood Squares Bob Quigley, and was actually hosted by the late Alex Trebek of Jeopardy fame. While many of the NBC episodes are available to watch online, none of the syndicated run is available anywhere. In fact, it's unknown if any of the episodes even still exist. A single clip has surfaced during a tribute to Alex Trebek, aired on Fox News Channel in November of 2020. However, the clip itself has not surfaced online, save for a single screenshot posted on Facebook. In the comments section of the screenshot, a user named Vahan Nisanian claimed that the game show author, Adam Nadef, stated that all episodes from the syndicated run do currently still exist. The nighttime Price is Right Dennis James episodes. Between 1972 and 1995, The Price is Right had 3 syndicated versions that aired, with Dennis James hosting the first, and then replaced by Bob Barker, Tom Kennedy hosting the second, and Doug Davidson hosting the third. While episodes from Barker, Kennedy, and Davidson's runs are easily accessible online, very little of Dennis James's run can be found. James wasn't exactly the most well-received host, especially compared to the legend Bob Barker, so they weren't exactly being actively sought after for most of the time they were lost. There was a rumor that he was replaced because of an inappropriate, albeit oblivious, comment he made during the show about a deceased woman's husband, but the real reason was simply that his 5-year contract had expired. His episodes were never aired again after 1977, due to most of the prizes being fur coats, which Barker, an avid animals rights activist, despised. Thanks to a few private collectors, some of his episodes have resurfaced, although some with only audio. Given his unpopularity amongst fans and hosts alike, it's unlikely his episodes will be resurfacing anytime soon. Show-Offs, 1975 pilot. Show-Offs was a game show that aired on ABC from 1975 to 1975. Not a very long lifespan, only a few months. It was created by Mark Goodson and Bill Todman, and was hosted by actor Bobby Van. However, the original host for the pilot was actually actor Larry Blyden. He hosted the pilot that aired on May 25th, 1975, which led to the show being picked up by ABC. Sadly, 2 weeks later, Blyden was killed in a car crash in Morocco. After his death, ABC aired a new pilot with Bobby Van as the host instead. Due to the circumstances surrounding the polling of this pilot and how it never aired, it's become extremely sought after in recent years. The only footage of the pilot to be released was in a promo by ABC that used footage that had edited out Blyden. In recent years, more clips have surfaced. In 2005, a clip of the pilot was used in VH1's Game Show Moments Gone Bananas. In 2012, 55 seconds of the pilot were uploaded to YouTube by a user named Kuka. Finally, in 2021, entertainment veteran Wink Martindale announced that the pilot had been found and was uploaded in its entirety to YouTube. However, there are some differences between the found pilot and the clips that were shown in the ABC promos, namely different contestants. It's possible that 2 pilots exist, but the whereabouts of the other one remain unknown. Password Plus unaired George Peppard episode. Password Plus was a revival of the original game show Password, where contestants tried to guess a mystery word using vague clues. It was your standard run-of-the-mill guessing game show. But there is an episode that didn't air, specifically thanks to its contestant, a man named George Peppard. In episode number 111, Peppard ranted about the practices of the network the show aired on, being NBC, and the forms they had to sign regarding honesty.
Okay, wait 1 minute. I think that I should do... Would you like me to complain some more about this?
No. I'd like you to explain your complaint. Don't complain anymore, just explain.
All right, well, here's the thing, friends. I think you should know that before we do this program, that is did they make you sign that form too?
I don't know what form you mean.
All right, well, there's a form that says that you won't cheat, you won't steal, you won't kick your mother, you won't tell anybody, you're not getting any prizes. It goes on and on and on like you were some crook. Well, now, it is really unnecessary in this game. I mean, everybody around this game is paranoid about the truth. They're very careful. And we even have somebody from NBC who watches us. Now, that gets into the police state mentality, and I do not think it's necessary, and I personally resent it. Mr. Silverman and the rest of you, would you all write him a letter and tell him to stop that?
The episode was pulled thanks to his ranting, also possibly due to 2 clues being suck and blow. The episode was lost until recently, where it actually became found when GSN randomly aired it in the mid-90s. Peppard was banned after this episode, which ended up costing the network a lot more money, since they had to film an entire extra episode to replace the one that didn't air. Call My Bluff, 1965 episodes. Call My Bluff was a short-lived game show in 1965 that was created once again by Mark Goodson and Bill Todman. The show was hosted by Bill Layden and was poorly received in America, but went on to be extremely popular overseas in Britain, Australia, Denmark, and Finland. Despite its popularity in certain countries, after its initial airing, it was never seen again, and was believed to be destroyed in the infamous scrapping practices that NBC did at the time. 2 rehearsal episodes are known to exist, with one of them being in the UCLA Film and Television Archive. In 2012, footage from the intro made its way onto YouTube, with a full episode being aired on Buzzr in 2020. Another episode was uploaded to the YouTube channel, the Gameshow channel, but has since been removed, with mirrors being available online. Slime Survivor 2000 pilot. Slime Survivor is another Nickelodeon game show that was also filmed at Nickelodeon Orlando Studios in April of 2000. It's incredibly obscure, and the pilot wasn't greenlit by Nickelodeon. It's been rumored to have been passed over in favor of Double Dare, possibly because of budget issues, but this remains unconfirmed. Take this with a grain of salt, as this information cannot be fully verified, but apparently, a Reddit user claimed to have been at the taping of the pilot. According to them, the show had 100 kids run under a big rig and pull individual ropes. 50 of them were slimed and 50 weren't. Whoever wasn't slimed would go on to continue in obstacles and challenges, until only one contestant remained. The only footage that exists of the pilot is in the video compilation made to celebrate Nickelodeon's 10th anniversary. It's unknown if Nick still has the original footage of the pilot. Game Farm. And here we have yet another Nickelodeon game show, this one being called Game Farm, which aired exclusively on Nickelodeon GAS, standing for Games and Sports for Kids. It was among the last of the shows to be filmed at the Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida in 2003. In this show, kid contestants would play online games against each other, and after 2 rounds, whoever had the most points would face the Gaminator in the final round. In 2007, Nickelodeon GAS went off the air. However, the writing was on the wall much earlier, with most of the programming being replaced with Nickelodeon reruns in 2005. Game Farm was among the casualties, and was dropped from the network, disappearing altogether. In 2012, 2 episodes were uploaded by a user named Unknown Nickelodeon, and a few promos were uploaded by Josh Lieberman and Jay Gunnaskar in 2010. Aside from that, no episodes, promos, or clips have resurfaced. There was a listing for a 5-episode DVD set on iOffer, but it was removed with nobody purchasing it. The exact number of episodes produced remains a mystery. Great Temptation Valerie episode. So this one is pretty grim. Great Temptation was an Australian quiz show that aired from 1970 to 1974. The quiz show had 3 contestants answer questions, with each correct answer winning them $1. They can then use their accumulated dollars to win prizes throughout the show. Despite running for 6 seasons, most, if not all of its episodes, are lost. However, there is one notable episode that never aired. According to the show's host, Tony Barber, one contestant, simply known as Valerie, died on stage while filming for an episode. After winning the game and being congratulated by Barber, the contestant inexplicably slumped over and collapsed on the floor. Paramedics were called, but she sadly passed away at that moment. In 2016, Tony Barber said the following, quote, "No one was very sure at first, because she actually won the game. I said, 'Congratulations, Valerie, you've won.' And she slopped. There was a bit of confusion. We cleared the studio, and the doctors were called. I said, 'How is she? She seems passed out.' And he said, 'Tony, she's passed on.' It was awful, and very upsetting for everybody there." Unquote. Legends of the Hidden Temple Pit of Despair Incident. Legends of the Hidden Temple was a beloved 90s Nickelodeon game show, known for its unique backdrop and theming. The show took 6 teams of 2 children through the fictitious temple in order to find its secret treasures, as well as performing physical and mental tasks. However, one of these tasks seemed to be too much for one female contestant. According to show host Kirk Fogg,
But I just remember this one girl, and it was she was going through the temple, and she just had a complete meltdown in the pit of despair, which was great, which was great. She had, it was just like, and we didn't want to stop tape, and she was bawling her eyes out, but then we had to stop tape because then she vomited into the pit. Cut! Cut! So they cleaned her up, reset the tape.
Woo! Super fan! Let me get a pic real quick.
Not much else is known about the episode, or why the contestant reacted this way. Tic Tac Doe 2000 pilot. Unlike most pilots on this iceberg, Tic Tac Doe is uniquely interesting because we don't even know if it exists. Tic Tac Doe was a game show that began way back in the 1950s. Contestants would have to answer questions in order to put their X's or O's on the board, like regular tic-tac-toe. The show has had several cancellations and reboots, until ultimately ending in 1990. However, according to the CBS Television City website, a pilot was filmed sometime in late 2000. This pilot would, of course, never air, and this screenshot is seemingly the only proof of its existence. Yet, no further information about it can be found online, and nobody has ever stepped forward claiming to know anything about it. Faux pause. Faux pause is probably the strangest entry on this iceberg, being that it isn't a game show at all. Instead, it was a regular show featuring its two hosts, Sean Donnellan and Mary Gallagher, simply commentating over infamous episodes of game shows. To be fair, it did air on the Game Show Network, so we're keeping it. For a while, it was unknown how many episodes were made, until show producer Frank Nicotero revealed that there were a total of 22 episodes. As of now, only a handful of episodes are available online, with some not even confirmed to exist. RuPaul's Drag Race unaired cherry pie footage. RuPaul's Drag Race is an American competition show, pitting several drag queens against each other for the title of America's Next Drag Superstar. However, one of the season 12 contestants was disqualified and edited out of the show after some disturbing information came to light. A few days before the season's premiere, a post was made onto Facebook about a contestant named Sherry Pie. The poster revealed that Sherry Pie pretended to be a casting director in order to convince him to send suggestive videos of himself for a fake audition. Then, 4 more men came forward claiming that, for years, Sherry Pie had been targeting young actors into sending him suggestive videos of themselves doing degrading things. One of the guys said that he masturbated on camera for the fake audition process. Sherry Pie, whose real name is Joey Gucciamelli, apologized on Facebook, but the damage was done.
There are no allegations. You know, I've admit to my wrongdoings and my just beyond wrongdoings, just horrible behavior. And I don't know if after I do this interview, if more will come forward. I'm here to just apologize, and I want to make that very clear.
Sherry was immediately disqualified, and the producers even edited him out of the show. From then on, every episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 12 began with a reminder of Sherry's disqualification. Fear Factor's Hee Haw Hee Haw. Fear Factor is a classic reality TV show that had contestants compete in extremely frightening challenges. Some of its episodes were lost for a while, but were thankfully made available through Hulu. Although one episode was apparently so disturbing that it almost didn't air at all. This episode, titled Hee Haw Hee Haw, had contestants drink either donkey urine or donkey semen. It was so gross that even the showrunners decided to not air the episode, making it lost for a brief period. However, it did eventually air on television as a rerun, and it's pretty goddamn disgusting. Jeopardy! Barbara Lowe episodes. If you Google Jeopardy Barbara Lowe, you'll come across a lot of discussions online about an infamous contestant named Barbara Lowe. The story goes that sometime during the 1980s, this woman appeared on Jeopardy and won 5 straight games. She was undefeated with $50,000 in winnings. What's odd is that she was described as acting fidgety and even argued with the host Alex Trebek about her incorrect answers. She was so rude that the show even received letters from fans complaining about her appearance. It was later discovered that Barbara appeared on several different game shows prior, under different aliases and using different social security numbers. This, of course, was a massive violation of ABC compliance and practice rules, and her winnings were withheld by the network. In turn, Barbara sued, and for some reason, the show just gave her money. Perhaps it wasn't worth the legal battle. All 5 episodes were withheld from rebroadcast, and the only real mention of Barbara is in the book Jeopardy! A revealing look inside TV's top quiz show. Dude, This Sucks, 2000 pilot. Back in the year 2000, MTV was filming a pilot for a new show called Dude, This Sucks. It was meant to be a type of talent show. However, if the contestants failed to impress the judges, they would be disqualified, and the audience would yell out, "Dude, this sucks." During their taping of the pilot episode, 2 members of the audience, who were middle schoolers at the time, were chosen by the staff to stand near the stage for the second act of the show. Suddenly, 2 men, calling themselves the Shower Rangers, appeared on stage, pulled down their pants, and defecated on the 2 girls.
In other fecal-related news, it started in January of last year when MTV developed an updated version of The Gong Show called Dude, This Sucks. During one particular dude taping, a talented duo called the Shower Rangers put on an act where they spray water out of their butts. What could go wrong there? Unfortunately, the water mixed with their fecal matter and wound up spraying all over 2 13-year-old girls in the audience.
The girls filed a lawsuit against MTV, who has since apologized. Network president Brian Graden called it, quote, "a terrible accident," and claimed to not be aware of that segment. Quote, "The footage from the show, part of a pilot taped on remote location, has never and will never air. We are sorry if these women were hurt. It is certainly never our intention to hurt anyone." Who's Who's, 1951. Who's Who's was a game show from the early 1950s that only aired once. The show featured 3 men, 3 women, and 3 panelists. The panelists would try to guess which man and woman were married to each other. In order to cut costs, the show incorporated a strange filming technique where audio was recorded on tape and filming was done by using a series of cameras to take many stills. The stills were then compiled together, and the producers would simply flip through them, similar to animation. For this reason, amongst others, the show was critically panned and cancelled after its premiere. No footage of the show is known to exist. It seems to have been completely wiped altogether, with only a few mentions from old newspapers remaining. Mind Readers, 1979 to 1980. Mind Readers was a game show that featured a team of men and a team of women, including a celebrity captain. The contestants were asked a simple yes or no question, and the captain would have to try to guess their teammates' answers. It's actually a pretty fun watch.
Let's see if you can mind read them. Jury, have you ever written graffiti on the wall of a public place? Please vote now. How many up there do you think have written graffiti on the wall of a public place?
Well, graffiti's an art form, and there's a lot of graffiti. I've never been in a place where there wasn't some, so I imagine a lot of people must be doing it. I'm going to say 6.
6, okay, up to 6 it goes. 6 will get you $500. Between 4 and 8, $200. Let's find out how many have written graffiti on the wall of a public place. 4! No, 4 that would admit it, okay.
Sadly, it aired on NBC, meaning that a good portion of its episodes have been wiped to recycle videotapes. You can actually find a few episodes online, although most of it is lost. Who Wants to Marry a Multimillionaire? Who Wants to Marry a Multimillionaire was a 2-hour special aired on Fox, pitting 50 women against each other for the chance of marrying a multimillionaire. The catch? They didn't know who this man was, and was only able to see his silhouette throughout the course of the show. Despite the show's high ratings, it was condemned by the National Organization for Women, and was ranked as one of the worst TV shows of all time by TV Guide. The show ended with the winner being Darva Conger, marrying the millionaire Rick Rockwell. However, there were some controversies surrounding Rick. First off, he might not have even been a millionaire, and some of his career history came into question. It was also later revealed that a past girlfriend had filed a restraining order against Rick for domestic abuse. Darva would later regret being on the show and decided to dissolve the marriage. Due to all this controversy, Fox never aired reruns of the special, and only a few clips are available online. Second Chance, 1977. Second Chance was a game show that ran only for a few months in 1977. Hosted by Jim Peck, the show featured 3 contestants who had to rack up as many points as possible by answering questions. However, they were given a second chance to get the question right for less points. They can then use those points to play the board round to accumulate as much money as possible. If the format sounds familiar, that's because the game was later retooled into Press Your Luck, which aired in the 80s. As for Second Chance, it's mostly lost. Wikipedia states that only a few episodes are available online, including its series finale, albeit in audio format. Nick Arcade. Nick Arcade was a pretty interesting game show for its time, utilizing video games and virtual reality. It lasted 2 seasons with over 80 episodes, and was full of fun 90s cheese. Although, for quite a while, a good handful of episodes were missing, with some having little to no details known about them. Thankfully, with the advent of Paramount Plus, all the episodes are currently available on the streaming service. Scratch and Sniff, Den of Doom, 2007. Scratch and Sniff were a pair of puppet hyenas who appeared on CITV, a British children's television channel. I didn't grow up with British TV, and there isn't a whole lot about them online, so I'm going off of what the wiki says. The wiki describes them as mischievous jokers who would often try to get someone injured or eaten. At some point, these two hosted their own spin-off series titled Scratch and Sniff, Den of Doom, a quiz show where they would ask contestants questions, with the hyenas eating the losing contestant. I'm honestly not 100% sure how many of their 15 episodes are missing. There seems to be a good handful on YouTube, so hopefully they're all out there. Fear Factor MTV Spring Break, 2002. While the Hee Haw episode was pretty revolting, it did eventually make its way onto television. However, there is one episode that remains completely lost. This episode was a special spring break edition of Fear Factor, starring 4 contestants vacationing in Cancun. Not much is known about it, including who these contestants were or who won. According to Hulu, the episode never made it to their streaming platform because of copyright. The $1 Million Pyramid Wii early version. Based on the game Pyramid, the $1 Million Pyramid was a game developed for the Nintendo Wii, released in 2011. The game followed the 2002 version of the show, having 2-player teams helping each other trying to guess the correct word. Strangely, some people started to notice that review sites for the game had different looking screenshots, suggesting an alternate early version of the game was possibly available at some point. Deal or No Deal, Unearned Episodes. This is a strange one. There seems to be lost episodes of Deal or No Deal, a classic game show that I actually used to watch back in the day. Most of these come from promo pictures and small mentions on forums, or empty entries on websites like TV.com. There's currently an entire list of unearned episodes on the Lost Media Wiki. Some of them were unearned due to the player having incredibly poor luck, such as winning only $5. But most of them don't have a solid reason for their disappearance. In all likelihood, it's probably related to time constraints to fit the show's programming slot on television. Winning Lines, Unearned Episode. Adapted from the British show of the same name, Winning Lines was meant to be CBS's answer to ABC's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It had 49 players answer 6 mathematical questions, and the 6 players who could correctly answer the quickest moved on to the next round. The 6 would then have to compete against each other, and the last one standing earned the chance to play for $1 million. Now, I couldn't find a whole lot of information about this unaired episode, besides a small mention on Wikipedia. The article states that the show was cancelled due to poor ratings after 10 episodes, with 1 having never aired. Joe Garagiola's Memory Game. Memory Game was an NBC game show from 1971, starring former baseball player Joe Garagiola. The show featured 5 female contestants who were tasked with memorizing the answers to specific questions per round. Each contestant started with $50, and that money would increase or decrease depending on if they could remember the correct answers or not. The show didn't seem to do well with audiences, and was cancelled only a few months after its premiere. Like most NBC game shows at the time, it was yet another victim to the tape wiping practices that networks would do. However, 5 episodes are said to exist at the UCLA Television Archive. You Bet Your Life, Bill Cosby version. You Bet Your Life is a rather simple quiz show, originally hosted by Groucho Marx of the Marx Brothers. It premiered on radio way back in 1947, before becoming a full-fledged television program in the 1950s. Throughout the years, there's been many different iterations of the show, hosted by different people. One of these in the early 90s was Bill Cosby, who was at his prime during this time with the success of The Cosby Show. Not much is known about the availability of his episodes. You can find some online, but most are said to be in the hands of Carsey Warner, producers of The Cosby Show, and rights owners. Go For It pilot. Sometime in the early 1990s, Nickelodeon filmed a pilot for a game show titled Go For It. For whatever reason, it was never greenlit. No footage of the pilot exists online, and the only evidence of its existence is this image, taken from the website of Diane Stapleton, a production designer who also worked on other Nickelodeon shows. However, trying to access the website now just leads me to a Trojan warning. Supposedly, the game incorporated a game board that the children would act upon as play pieces, involving physical and mental minigames. It's also possible that the show was scrapped in favor of Guts, a more competitive, action-oriented game show. Let's Make a Deal, 1963 pilot. Let's Make a Deal is a classic American game show that involves the host, Monty Hall, making deals with members of the audience for money and/or prizes. As such, the audience would dress up in silly outfits to better their chance of getting picked by Hall. It's simple and fun to watch. In 1963, a pilot for the show was taped, but hadn't been seen in over 10 years. Clips of it appeared in the 1977 documentary Deal, and an image was shown in an episode of Two on a Town, although the full pilot remained lost for some time. In 2002, rumors began circulating that the pilot would air on the Game Show Network, as part of the show's 40th anniversary. Thankfully, it did, and it was recorded and uploaded to YouTube in its entirety. Double Dare Australian version. The Australian adaptation of Double Dare is far more obscure than the American version. Out of the 700 or so episodes made, only a small percentage are viewable today. There's really not a whole lot to say about the show, which is why it's on the bottom of this iceberg. Seriously Dude, I'm Gay, 2004. When talking about a piece of lost media, there is usually some remnant of it left behind, like a set photo or even a small clip if you're lucky. Well, that's not the case with this show. It falls into that special super lost category for reasons. So, Seriously Dude, I'm Gay was a show in which 2 straight guys would have to compete against each other by acting gay for a week. They also had to convince their friends and family that they were gay. By the end of the week, the 2 men were to be judged by actual gay men, and whoever was the gayest would win $50,000. Obviously, this was not without controversy, as both the LGBTQ+ community and the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation Community, or GLAAD, opposed the show. GLAAD actually ended up meeting with Fox and successfully convinced them to cancel the show. Where it gets crazy is that not a single thing from the show has ever been released. No footage, no images, not even logos were ever made available. We know at least one of the straight contestants, Larry Anderson, who believed the show would have helped quell gay stereotypes. But for now, the show is completely lost. A pilot was made, which was shown to GLAAD, but this has never been leaked. Shop Till You Drop, mobile game. Shop Till You Drop was an American game show that lasted from 1999 until 2005. Hosted by Pat Finn, the show featured two pairs of people competing against each other by participating in various rounds and challenges. Completing the challenge allowed the team to shop for their prize. It's a pretty silly show, having watched one episode, but there's a bit of goofy charm to it. After the show's run, a mobile game was made, which was developed by a company called Reaction. It was available until 2010 when Reaction closed down. No playable ROM exists online, and only 4 screenshots of the game are known to exist. Cash on the Line pilots a pyramid. According to Pyramid's own Facebook page, quote, "Before there was the $10,000 Pyramid game show, which began broadcasting on CBS TV daytime in March 1973, a pilot was made under the title Cash on the Line at the Ed Sullivan Theater. Here is an image of possibly the only view of the set itself. And if you look very carefully down below towards the edge of the balcony, you can see the top of the heads of guest Bill Cullen and host Dick Clark as they were on stage. Pyramid has actually had a few other pilots recorded, but for whatever reason, a handful of them are either lost or partially lost. Alright, that is the Lost Media Game Show Iceberg. It was a lot. It was a lot. I had to watch a lot of these game shows, and I'm so sick of game shows right now. That's not why the video took a long time to make. I was just in a creative burnout. But anyways, like I said earlier, don't expect icebergs from me often. I know there's like other Lost Media ones that other YouTubers have done. I'm not gonna do those. And yeah, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And yeah, take care.